This is like totally random and not to do with anything, but it is kind of, because I'm really excited about this. So I was debating what I was going to do for my makeup look yet again. I did have the idea of doing a makeup look inspired by one of my favorite paintings of all time, which I will include right here. This is the Fallen by Alexander Cabanel. Everyone knows this painting. This is like a huge painting on TikTok for some reason. I don't know why everyone else likes it. I know why I like it, because I'm the devil. Hello, it's in my name. So beautiful. It's got all these like really beautiful like blues, and then the hair is very copper, and then, you know, it's kind of like this red rimmed under the eye of like sadness. So I wanted to do a look inspired by that, and I'm so excited because I just got in the mail like a couple days ago my Bob and Monet eyeshadow, the Pretty Funny palette. I'm so excited. I was so excited. I wanted to try this out immediately. So I will be going into the Funny palette because this has all of the colors I'm going to need. There's a little bit more that I'm going to need. I may end up dipping a little bit into the Icy palette just because I love this palette so much and I want to use it all the time. So I may dip into this a little bit. And then of course I have like, I'm going to need a red. I think I have like 1,200 reds, but I think maybe I can use like the Strawberry Shortcake palette. There's like a really pretty red and a really pretty gold in here that I can probably use. Hello, sinners, and hail Sappho. I'm your favorite femme princess, Narcisse DeVille, and welcome to Femme Makeup Chats. So this video, I had this idea for a while now because I have thought about this like topic a few times. I've been asked, I actually just hit 600, by the way. Thank you. Now we just need, I think I have 602 now. So we just need 64 more of you so I can get to my favorite number ever, my lucky number. Ooh, I DIY'd this. Isn't this everything? I don't know if you can see this. It is, oh, it looks so pretty on camera. Oh my God, I'm so obsessed. I DIY'd this from like the same refrigerator magnets that I did for that one. I hope this just stay like that. That's perfect. Oh my God, I'm obsessed. So yeah, please help me get to my lucky number 666. So this video is going to be about my femme journey, kind of like how I realized I was a femme and, you know, all that, because people ask me all the time, like, how did you realize you were a femme? Like, when did you know? Kind of like things like that. Like people ask me that on Tumblr all the time. And I always answer it. Like, I'm not like gonna say, no, I'm not gonna answer this, but I've always wanted to make like a proper video. I did plan at one point to make this a scripted video, but then I was like, I don't have the energy, because here's the thing, right? I was thinking about this when I like came up with this video idea, but the thing is like, it's so impossible to talk about my femme journey without also talking about my journey in like sexuality and gender, like writ large, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like, it's just not possible to talk about one without the other for me. So of course I have to talk about like, you know, my experience, because here's the, okay. So this is getting off to a great start. It's okay. We're going to get there. So in my mind, and I was telling my mother this a few days ago, and I think it's really interesting. I feel like there have been between 3 and 4 versions of me. What I mean is, I am not, and I know this is like a good thing realistically, but like I am not at all the same person that I was, you know, when I was first realizing I was gay when I was 13. Like, I am not the same person. And like, obviously, realistically, like, yes, I'm the same person, but like my attitude about things has changed, my outlook, like things that I really, really felt and believed at that point in my life, I don't think and believe anymore. This was also the era of like when I first got Logo. So at that point in time, it was before they were trying to chase the like, you know, family gay demographic, which that's its own thing. But like, so they had like documentaries and talking about all these different experiences. It was the first time I saw the documentary about this place in Colorado called Trinidad, which was like the trans capital of the world for a long time. But it was the trans capital. It was where everyone went to have bottom surgery. But yeah, it was like the place to go. And so I, was very fascinated by that. I didn't, you would think seeing something like that would make me realize like, maybe I'm trans. No, didn't awaken anything because all of the people in that were like middle-aged women who had been married. Some were still married, some were divorced. And I was like, well, that's not me because I'm, young, a gay man or gay, identifying person. I was actually kind of more androgynous at that point in my life. I was kind of like, well, I didn't, the language for non-binary was not a word I had heard of. I don't think it was a word most people had heard of at that point, queer history. Because you have to understand, so I came out, the first time I came out I was 13 years old. So that was like 2005, 2006. So this is like heavy in the Bush era. So, and not the good Bush, unfortunately. So, this was not a great time. My family was very Catholic conservative. They still are. So I was not feeling like super confident. I was kind of scared. Like I didn't know how this was going to go. So it was a whole thing for me at that point in my life. And so I was like, okay. So, I came out to my mother, I think at 16, because that was the first time I actually had a crush on a boy. And I was like, well, I can't, my working theory at that point in my life was like, well, I can't be gay because gay is like when you're in love with someone of the same sex. And I've never been in love. Like I've only been like sexually attracted, but not like in love. So that means I'm like, and it's okay. Can we talk about the fact that like, I did have a period when I was like 14 to 15 before I had the crush where I was like, okay, I guess I'm bi because like I love women, but I'm attracted to men. That was my working theory. So I was like, okay, I'm bi. And that's how I identified for like a hot minute. And then I realized I was a gay boy. And then I was like, no, bi is just like a stopover on the way to Gay Town, which is bullshit. I'm not proud of it, but I mention it because I think it's important to be honest about like shit we've done in the past that we're not proud of that maybe we want to grow from and learn from. You know what I mean? Like it was not my finest hour and I was not great to a lot of friends who were bi. So yeah, it's honestly, it's embarrassing. It's like the embarrassing shit you do when you're a teenager and you think you know everything. And like, if I could go back, I'd be like, look, girl, it's not that deep. Let people just feel how they feel. High school is kind of complicated. Not everyone can think they have it all figured out. Also, you don't actually have it all figured out. Just you wait, girly, because you're going to learn you don't have shit figured out the way you think you do. But that's a whole other story. Oh God. So that was like my young self. I was very much like, I was unhappy, but I didn't realize people could tell that I was unhappy. Like I didn't feel like I did feel unhappy. Let me not lie. I guess I don't remember a lot of shit from that time, but I do remember like feeling very distinctly. And I guess part of this is just being a teenager, I think to some degree. I was very much of the mindset of like, I will never be happy. I don't know what that's like to be like happy all the time. I was very much convinced that people who said they were happy all the time were either lying or delusional or born that way. Like I truly did not believe I could ever be long-term happy. I was convinced that it just was not possible for me. So I was like very like kind of morose, I guess is the word. And it's sort of funny to think about that like version of me because I am so like far removed from that it almost, oh my God, holy fucking shit. But I'm so sorry, you guys. This looks so fucking good in person. I don't know how this is going to read in camera, but I feel like so fucking pretty. Oh my God, Bob, Monet, what the fuck? Okay, anyway, oh, I want this all over me. Sorry, this is getting really so much, but I'm so obsessed with this look right now. This gold. Oh, I feel like a Greek goddess salad. Oh my God, this is so much. I'm going to use this in every makeup look. I do not care, y'all. Okay, well, now I have a lot of fallout, but that's okay. I'm still going to look good. I cannot. I'm so obsessed. Sorry. So what? Oh God, I have no clue what I was saying. I'm just so enamored with this fucking gold. I have no clue what I was saying anymore. So anyway, long story short, I was just a very miserable person. Like that is the long and short of the conversation. I was a very miserable person, and I didn't really know why. A few years later, when I was like 18 and I was a senior in high school, it's kind of where I first started to a little bit explore my gender and kind of just see different things. I will say, again, the non-binary, like the term non-binary was not a thing at that point, but I was as close to it as I think you can be without knowing the word non-binary. You know what I mean? Because I very much identified, like my identity at the time as a young person when I was 18 was like more girl than boy. But I didn't really think there was anything I could do about it. I didn't think there was anything I necessarily wanted to do about it at that time in my life. So it was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, I'm more girl than boy, but it's just going to sit there. That's just going to be a feeling that just sits there. And so it did, you know, it just kind of sat there. And then by the time I was like 20, almost 22, I realized, okay, well, I am in fact trans. I am in fact, you know, I feel this way about myself. So now I have to do something about it. But the problem was I was still in college. I was, you know, I think it was my last year of college that I realized this. And I was like, well, I have no money. I have nothing that I can do. I don't have a job yet because I was too busy focusing on my schooling, which is what my mother wanted for me, you know, but she really wanted me to focus on my schooling. So, you know, I didn't have a job and I didn't know what to do. And I just felt really, really emotional and stuck. And so I went through a year-long depression. Also because I knew this about myself, but I also didn't want to like make it a thing with like administration and like having to tell teachers because they already knew me as one thing. So I was like, well, the nickname that I've been going by since the 8th grade is super androgynous, so I can just get away with just sticking with that. And that's what I did. But, you know, I wasn't really happy with it. So like I basically went to school, came home, went to bed. And that was what I did for that entire last year of school. I was just so unhappy. And eventually I graduated, I got a job. That was a very stressful time trying to find a job. It gives me the opportunity now to do something about my gender. I was, I think like 23, almost 24. And literally within like 6 months of getting the job, I was able to, you know, do everything. I got my first tax return, which ended up being enough money to, this tape is not coming off. I don't know why I'm fighting with it. I do anything left-handed, doesn't work. Do it with my right hand, it's fine. I don't get it. Anyway, so I got my first tax return. It allowed me to have the money to do my name change. I got on hormones. I was able to like really just like fast. I changed my gender marker because I was living in a state where that was like easy to do. I didn't have to do anything for it. I just had to like have a doctor fill out a form, which is really convenient. I think it should be that way everywhere. We're not going to get into that. But yeah, so I was able to just do everything like within a year, everything that I was like able to do that wasn't super expensive. Like obviously any kind of surgery was like out of the question, but you know, everything else was easy enough to do. So, you know, and I even saw a therapist who was really, really nice. You know, she wrote the letter that you need. So it was all really like relatively easy, fast, you know, not a lot of like difficulty there, thankfully. And so, you know, within like a few months, my depression went away because I was finally able to, do my thing. I was able to live my life. I was able to change my clothing and buy makeup for the first time and kind of like experience all of that. And I will say, my makeup at the time, I'll include pictures, don't you worry. My makeup at the time was not great. It was very much like, I think pretty much straight foundation and powder, and that was it. And I was definitely one of those girls who started with I actually used to be obsessed with the Maybelline BB cream, but I used that as a primer before I knew like what primers were. And then I would put on top of that the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse, which, do they even make that anymore? I know Jinx uses that as her base, but like, do they make that properly anymore? Because that was the shit back in the day. I don't know what they put in that Dream Matte Mousse, but it was good. It always made me feel good. I don't think it matched me at all because I'm very, very pale, but like it was my jam for a little bit there. And then I would use I think I went between the Maybelline powder, which was of course always loose powder, because pressed powder I think is a scam. I'm sorry. Fight me in the comments. Pressed powder is a scam. Loose powder is where it's at. So I would use like either the Maybelline loose powder, or I did do the Coty Airspun before I knew the, horrors of Coty Airspun and Clown Long. I don't encourage looking that up. I've never done it, so I'm not about to start. But yeah, I don't want the Clown Long, thanks. I just want to paint like a clown, but I don't want Clown Long. Anyway, so don't ask. I don't know. I just felt like making a little joke. So I go through, I do everything with my transition, and then I have to now tell people in my family, because I kind of just did it. Like, my mother knew what was happening, obviously, because she was there with me every step of the way. But like, other people in my family didn't know what was happening because I wasn't telling people. I didn't come out as trans exactly. So they kind of just found out the following September, because that was my, like, oh no. Yeah, they found out the September. I hadn't changed my name yet, but I was already, like, when I got the job that I got it in August, and then September was my official graduation. Mind you, okay, so I have a funny story about that. I will get to that in just a second. So September was my graduation, and I said, well, I want to wear makeup. I want to look cute. I want to wear like a skirt and a pretty top, and I want to wear like longer hair because my hair hadn't grown in yet. It has now. I still wear wigs because I just like them. I like to feel the fantasy. Leave me alone. Anyway, because I know like TERFs on Tumblr love to come for my wig line and be like, well, your lace is not blah, blah, blah. Listen, I'm not on Drag Race. You're not Michelle Visage. You don't get to tell me about my fucking lace. If I wanted to wear it properly, I would. I don't care that deeply. It's just to like minimize the 5 head. I'm so sorry. I have a huge forehead. I get it from my mother. Blame her. Like, what do you want me to do? I like the look. It gives me the full femme fantasy. That's what I want. These nails are not mine either. So like, get over it. It's not that deep. Like, it's all a fantasy. Just enjoy the fantasy and shut the fuck up. And then September is my like official graduation. So at the school I was at, it was an art school. Don't ask. And they did a graduation in September, and then the portfolio show, which is like your like showing off your portfolio of all the shit you've designed over the years, was actually in June. So it was like there's like graduation, there's like a pre-graduation thing, and then the actual graduation was like a few months later. I don't know why they did it. It used to be you graduated at the same time, and then they changed it my year to like have a real graduation. So we all graduated in September, even though my friend at the time graduated like a quarter before me. So like 11 weeks before me, because I took a quarter off because of mental health shit. And that was at the beginning. That was before I even realized I was trans. So it was a lot of mental health journeys in college. Let's say that. Anyway, so this friend graduated 11 weeks before me. or did the portfolio show 11 weeks before me. And then we both graduated together technically, which I guess was nice because I appreciated graduating with them. I do have a photo of that. If I can find it, I'll put it in this video as well. We do we do graduation, and I don't feel like I'm special for doing it. I actually kind of regret it because I don't feel like my college did anything for me. They certainly didn't ever help me get a job. They didn't I don't think college really improved anything for me. Yeah, great. I can say that I have a Bachelor of Science, but I'm not working in my field whatsoever. So it didn't really do me any favor. So I don't say that to be oh, look at me, I went to college. I don't think it was a great investment for me, but it was very much the era of you have to go to college or you're not going to get a job. And now everyone's like, you're too educated. So, doesn't always pan out the way you expect. But, my mother called up my aunt because she was driving my uncle and some of my family from California to Vegas, which is where I lived at the time. And they were like, Mom's like, so there's probably something you should know. And we might want to tell them now, because if they don't, they're going to be really surprised when they see me. Yeah, she told them literally in the car right before they came over. And I guess she gave them an opportunity to be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going to that. And thankfully, my family was like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. I don't think anyone was super surprised. I don't think my being trans was something that was earth-shatteringly shocking to anyone in my family, even though no one else had done it. I don't think it was surprising because it was me, and I was always very feminine. So I don't think anyone was super, super shocked by it at all. It was not a revelation of oh, this one, the one who was super femme ended up being super femme. Shocking news at 11. It wasn't that. So, thankfully they came, they all saw me. No one really commented on it. And in fact, my grandmother used my full dead name. And at the time it wasn't really a dead name, but I wasn't using it. I had been going by a nickname since the 8th grade because I just felt like it was more authorial to just use my first two initials, not my first two, let me try that again. My initial for my first name and my middle name. I thought it was more like a author name to have just two initials. It just felt very authory to have a name that was just initials. Thankfully, I think it kind of worked for me because like I said, going by my initials was also very gender neutral. So I didn't have to have a whole conversation. People who knew me didn't necessarily assume anything about my gender because my initials were very gender neutral, to the point that when I had to go get my tickets to the graduation, mind you, this is a free graduation that you're getting tickets to at a public mall. Out myself basically to get things done, especially when I had first turned 21 and I went to Halloween. When I had first turned 21, 22, and I went to a bar for Halloween, and I was for me, I was in drag, but I was just dressed up cute. I had a lime green dress. I wish I still had this. It was a shift dress, so it was very mod 60s. I had concealer on my lips, so I had that very mod 60s kind of vibe. My whole look was very 60s it girl. And we were at the bar, and I gave the guy my ID. He looks at the ID, looks up at me, looks at the ID, looks up at me. And I was like, it's Halloween. Are you fucking kidding me right now? I don't look so different from my ID photo to what I was looking like at the time. But also it was Halloween. So I was like, okay, well, this is me. Let me explain. And so I had to out myself to a fucking bartender at a cheap little bar that was across the street from my house. So I've had so many experiences like that. I also had one where it was New Year's and we were at a casino, and mind you, it's like a little casino in the city of Henderson, which is outside of Vegas. So we go to this casino, and when you're not 21, you are not allowed to stand near a slot machine, even if you're not touching it, even if you're not looking at it. So if someone in your family is going to the bathroom and you're standing outside, you kind of have to keep moving because you're not allowed to stand there. Like, you will get yelled at by security if you stand there. So I'm fully like 22 years old at this point, but I still look very young. And, you know, the security comes over, asks for my ID. My friend was holding it at the time, so she pulled it out of her tits. And the guy, it was the same thing of like the guys looking at my ID, looking at me, looking at my ID, and I'm like, oh God. So I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. And he's like, okay. And then we were free to go. But like, so what I'm saying is being trans is super fun. Like, I can't even begin to get into the experiences like that. Like, it's just so dumb. Where was I going with this? Oh, so, you know, that was like the whole experience with the graduation. Everything was great. You know, my grandmother kind of ignored it, pretended it wasn't happening. Other people, you know, didn't say anything. I did have one instance, not related to the graduation, but just related to like family shit, where after I came out, the first time my aunt saw me, on my dad's side, she looked at me, and I think I was wearing a dress or something like that. She looked at me and she was like, so what's all this about? And I was like, are you kidding? What the fuck do you think? And then she tried to get like, she got like full, I gotta be honest, it was a little turfy. She was like, oh, I read all about this, and like, I took a class on it in college, and it's so blah, blah, blah. I was like, girl, shut the fuck up. Leave me alone. And then she was like saying something because she goes, well, how does your mother feel about the fact that you two have different last names? Because when I changed my name, I did not want my father's last name, and I hadn't had the same last name as my mother since I was 4 years old when my parents divorced. So I was like, I don't really care. Like, we're just going to have different last names. And I looked at her and I go, we have not had the same last name since I was 4 years old. I don't think my mother gives a shit. Like, that's what it is. Like, we haven't had the same last name in years. So why would she care? And she didn't care. Like, my mother had nothing to say about me choosing a last name that was not the same as hers, because why would she? I didn't want the same last name as my father because we had a very complex relationship. He helped me fill out the papers to do my name change, but even he didn't have anything to say about like wanting a different last name. He didn't blame me. I do remember very distinctly when I first saw my name written out on that legal paperwork, I started crying because it was just so like, oh my God, this is finally happening. It felt like all of this kind of catharsis from all of these years of like feeling these things kind of like bubbling up since I was like 5 and 6, not knowing, for the first time after so many years of like feeling these feelings, but not really knowing what to do with them. Like, when I was a kid and I like had these feelings of like, I kind of wish I was a girl, and I didn't know enough to know, like, the word trans just was not in my lexicon, and like knowing that I could, grow up and be a girl was not something that I understood. So it was just kind of like, well, I wish I could wear these type of clothes. I wish I could have long hair. I wish I could wear makeup. But like the language was not there for me. So I admire kids these days who like know at a young age and who have the language and whose parents are supportive enough that they can do that, because it's not that my parents weren't supportive. I think they would have been if we had known. But my mother was just terrified. She was like, I think she would have let me wear a dress to school, but she was always terrified that something would happen to me or that I'd be more made fun of than I already was because I was already fat. Yeah, it was just like, it was a very cathartic experience to see my name on paper. And then when I did everything at the same time. So when I went to update my name on my ID, I was like, well, I might as well do the gender marker too, so I don't have to do this again later. And thankfully, Vegas was a state where I could literally just go to a primary care doctor and say, okay, this is where I'm at, and they just filled out the form, which I don't know why you have to have a doctor fill out a form, but like, whatever. At that point, I had already been, as they say, I had already been living full time for like 6 months. So, I mean, like, I wasn't worried about it. And she was super cool. She was like, okay. So she filled out the form. We submitted it to the DMV along with the name change. And I mean, it was a long process. Like, let me not pretend like it was just the DMV. Like, you actually have to go, you have to do the legal name change, which you have to go to a court for. It has to be in the paper. And then you have to do what is it after that? Oh, you have to go to like the Social Security office and get that changed. Or no, I think you have to do your birth certificate first. And then you do the Social Security office and get it changed. And then you do like ID, and then you can do like credit cards and all that shit. So it was like, I think altogether, the name change process and all of that took like 7-8 months, because it took 3 months just to get my new birth certificate from California, which, can I just say, the most annoying thing in the world about that was it took 3 months, and literally what they did was you had to fill out this paperwork. They photocopied what my mother hand wrote and just put it on a fancy paper that was embossed. I was like, you didn't even type it up for 3 months? You didn't even type. I was like, oh my God. So I was a little bit irked at that. I was like, you didn't even type that shit up. You just said, okay, we're photocopying it onto fancy paper. Hope that's okay. Which I guess that makes sense, because I think most people's birth certificates are handwritten by their parents. I don't actually think that birth certificates are generally like typed up, but I feel like my original one was typed up. So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about then. So that was like the longest part, just waiting for the birth certificate. And then after that, it was just like, everything else was pretty easy. We just had to wait in line and talk to different people and get everything updated. And then once it was updated, it was like, okay, I did everything at once. So my ID has said F since like 2015, 2016. So, fuck with me. But yeah, so, after all that, let me tell you, it's the little things. When you first transition, it is very much the little things that mean so much, because seeing that little letter F and seeing my new name on my ID, I literally would stare at it for such a long time, because it was so special to me. And it had felt like, especially after my depression and everything else, it kind of felt like, is this ever going to happen? Like, you know how those things are. And so, I went through a period where I will say I became happier after that. And I know that because, like I said, my cousin was like, oh, you seem so much happier now, which I didn't realize I had seemed unhappy. I guess I didn't know that other people could see it who didn't like see me a lot. So while I was working at that job that like allowed me to do all of this, I made a lot of great friends. I eventually became what was called a mentor, which meant I was helping with training, which was super, super exciting to me, because I was getting to help like new hires. And I had decided after being there a year, I was like, I want to do something different. I wanted to kind of branch out. And so I decided to become a mentor and help with training. And it was so much fun. And there I met the first girl that I had a crush on post-transition, but also that I recognized as a crush. One of my coworkers, who was also a mentor, who I was really good friends with. And it was really the first time that it had ever happened since I was like a young kid. I had like crushes on girls when I was younger, but when I got older and was like, oh, well, I guess I'm, I like guys, so I guess I'm gay. And then, coming out as trans, and I was like, okay, I guess that means I'm straight now, which was a mind fuck, let me tell you, after identifying as gay for like 8 years, I think at that point I had been out. I was like, oh, I guess I'm straight now. That seems wrong somehow. So, after all that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm straight, whatever. And, but there was this friend, and I was just like, I don't know what it was about her. And because we were friends, I felt comfortable. Oh my God, I just hit my lav mic with my puff. Okay. Anyway, because we were like close friends, I felt comfortable enough to be like, Oh my God, it's so weird. Like I had a moment where I had like a little crush on you, and she took it really well, thankfully. But like, she was chill about it, so it was great. And I said, it's really confusing too, because I think we were just talking about like crushes on girls or whatever. And I said, it was really confusing too, because I haven't had, crushes on girls in years. Like I'm pretty I'm pretty openly into men. So I was a little confused by it. And she's like, oh, I kind of had that like masculine energy. So, it's no big deal, whatever. Like I'm not bothered by it. And I was like, okay. And I didn't think anything of it because I think I was with my ex at the time. So, I was already dating someone who at that time I knew to be a guy. So it wasn't a big deal. It was not a thing really, but I kept kind of having this, like every so often I was like, I think I had maybe one or two other like random unexpected crushes on girls, but it was mostly just like a one-off thing. So I kind of just chalked it up to like, well, I guess maybe someone with a masculine energy. And so I did tell myself at that point, I was like, you know what? I think, I don't have a desire per se to date a woman, but if I ever fell in love with a woman, I'm not going to say no to it. I'm going to say, okay, this is a thing. It's not expected. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, we're just going to go with it. And that's kind of how I left it for quite a while. And then after I broke up with my ex, or actually before then, after my ex came out as trans herself, I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I guess I'm a lesbian now, because we were still together like when they first came out. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a lesbian now. It didn't last very long after that, let's say. It lasted maybe a month. And my reasoning when I said, I think we need to take a break and just stay friends, I was like, I am not prepared to date a woman. And I really did, still love them, but I just was like, I'm not prepared for this. So, we're like, okay, we're going to still stay friends. We did not stay friends. Like, let me just spoil the ending now. We did not stay friends. We lasted maybe a month of friends after we broke up because, they were in the beginning stages of transition. And anyone who has ever transitioned knows that it can be very, very touch and go in the beginning because it's a lot of emotions. There's a lot of things happening at once. I don't feel any hard feelings about it. It didn't end particularly well. So like for a time I was like, okay. And like, I am not the sort of person who will stalk my ex. I don't care. Once you're out of my life, you are out of my life. I'm not playing those games. Like, I'm not that person who's going to stalk my ex. I don't care. I don't know what they're doing. I know some things because other people have told me and I wish they hadn't because I didn't ask, but that is neither here nor there. The point of this all is, I guess I wish them well. No, I do wish them well. That's not what I meant. I meant, I guess, like, there's not really a point to that. But anyway, so, after we broke up, I was kind of like, I'm gonna just date men. I really was kind of like, I still was kind of resisting it, even though I had already said like, oh, I guess I'm a lesbian now. I really was resistant to it. I was like, no, even though the reality was I just was not interested in being with that woman because I was only interested in masculine women, but I didn't know that at the time. So I kind of, just was like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to try and figure it all out. I don't know. And so long story short, I've been single ever since, let's put it that way. But I kind of was like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do. I was very, very like, I don't want to say hesitant to like name any kind of sexuality, but I guess I was kind of like, I don't really have any thoughts about this. So, whatever I decide is whatever. Eventually there was a point where my friends introduced me to Butches of TikTok. And that is where the world really opened up for me. And I was like, okay, wow, this is like a thing. I'm going to, I'm really attracted to this. So I came out as bi, and for the second time. And I was like, okay, well, you know, this is how I feel. I'm attracted to butches specifically. This has like opened up so much more for me. And then I got into the lesbian side of Tumblr. And that's where I really started to realize, oh, actually, I think I'm a femme too. And it was getting to read other femmes talking about their love of butches and talking about how they feel and how, you know, what butches mean to them, that really solidified to me that I was a femme. Because I was like, I had heard the term, but I was like, I don't know if I'm allowed to call myself this, because I think, I'm bi at the time is what I'm thinking. So I'm like, I can't call myself a femme, but I'm more attracted to, increasingly just more attracted to butches and studs. I'm not really attracted to men as much anymore at that point in my life. And I'm still not. So that's how I came to the conclusion that I was a lesbian, by the way. It's because I was like, I just don't have any attraction left for men. And that came partially from attempting to date them. I was like, this is not working. There's always, and I'll get into that conversation as well in a minute. One of the issues that I ran into a lot when I was like thinking I was bi was not necessarily like just people trying to, couples or other things trying to, have a couple experience or something like that. It was more that there was a lot of like seemingly pretty nice guys who were like really into me and who were attractive, but there was always just something missing for me. You know what I mean? Like there was just always something that I could not explain or put my finger on, that I just always found a reason why they weren't, the right one. And I had, guys who were like, at least one or two who were like, ready to marry me, I think. But there was just always something for me that didn't feel quite right. There was always just something that just it didn't work for me. And I had no idea what it was at the time. And eventually, the more I got into lesbian Tumblr and the more I talked to femmes and became friends with other femmes and femmes with butches, when I became friends with butches as well, I started to realize like, oh, okay, like I just have no interest in men whatsoever. And at first, people who were bi told me of something called the bicycle, which I actually am obsessed with, and I think it's really genius. But it's basically like this idea that a lot of people who are bi can kind of go through cycles of attraction where, they're more attracted to one gender than another. I will say, for me, I'm just not, I have no attraction to men at all. But I did, and I can't deny that I did. But like the answer of like how I realized I was a femme is maybe not the most interesting, because it's like a very short, like, I realized I was femme because I talked to other femmes and I heard them and I listened to them and I was like, oh, that's me. That is how I feel. Who I am now as a lesbian is very, very different from who I was just in general before. Even like in the early stages of my transition, I'm a different person. I am more positive now. I am more happy now. I love myself more now. And I like actually feel like happiness is achievable and something that I deserve and want and believe is a thing now, where I didn't before. Obviously, we talked about that at the very beginning of this video 3 hours ago. So, I'm so much a different person. I mean, obviously, look at, like, my makeup has evolved a lot because of my love of butches and like wanting to do, like, everything I do is for them. And that was not the case even like 4 or 5 years ago. Like my look, my aesthetic, my vibes, just like everything I do is for butches, because of butches. Everything that I do is because of butches and studs. I love you all so much. And so that is why that's what's made me who I am today. And so that's why I do feel like I've had different versions. So like there was, little baby gay version who was problematic and unhappy. Then there was like, post-transition me who was happier, but not quite where she needed to be. And then there's me now. And I think I am the most fully realized version of myself that I can be, and I'm very, very happy with that. Okay. Ooh, it's a look. It's a look. I think I've said everything that I wanted to, everything that like got my point across about my femme journey. And yeah, this is the look. I'm very, very proud of it. I'm very, very excited. Thank you for 600 subscribers. It really means a lot. I know it's not like a lot of people, but I was thinking about this the other day and I was like, I mean, think about this. Do you know 600 people? Like 600 people in general? Probably not. Could you imagine 600 people in a room? That's a lot of fucking people. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it actually is kind of a lot of people. So it really means the world to me. I really, really deeply appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you for all the love that you've been giving me on this new series. I'm really, really enjoying it. I have a lot of different ideas to come. And of course, you know, if you want to follow me on Patreon and submit different ideas that I can do, be my guest. Patreon.com/NarcissaDeVille. I'm Narcissa DeVille on everything, so. I got rid of Twitter. I haven't been using it, but I did get it back so I could still have my name because I don't want anyone else having my name and saying shit under my name. This fucking look! Ah! Ah! I have like the same 12 poses. I don't know what to tell you. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe, comment down below. Tell me your femme journey, if you can keep it under like 500 words or whatever the fuck it is. I don't want to read a whole novel. Also comment down below. Tell me how you discovered your love of butches. I just want to hear different people's stories. I really enjoy hearing them. Leave a like, check me out on Patreon, and until next time, stay devilish.